In case you don't know, our guest is the creator of the legendary real life Brady Bunch in Chicago. Also the creator of Transparent, I Love Dick, tons of other projects now, the author of one of my favorite books, She Wants It, Desire, Power, and Toppling the Patriarchy, and also the person responsible for finally putting Judith Light in a movie musical. Thank you so much, Joey Soloway, for being here with us today.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. And I love that introduction.
I have wanted to tell you how excited I was about Judith Light and that musical for a long time now. Well, let's dive right into it. I have questions for you. You've been a storyteller your whole life. You have famously said many times that filmmaking is just doll playing, which you've been doing since you were a kid. Can you tell us about those early years, maybe post Brady Bunch, but pre-success in Hollywood, about hustling for those first gigs?
Yes. I mean, because I'm early in my transition right now, I'm still looking back at all those years and trying to identify, where I was, even though my gender presentation was different. I'm still trying to find Joey in those days. And, I'm not really quite sure whether I had like a personality or a trauma response. But if we're talking about who I was then or how I identified, I did identify as cis. And I think it gave me a lot of privilege to just feel like I had every right to tell my story. And so I think after college and before like success, I was really doing a lot of actively trying to be like the world's best PA on commercials and getting to know everybody in production. I was just very much like the eager kid who wanted to join and work for free and do anything I could. And so I was working at Cartemquin on documentaries and then got into advertising and just like always hustling in some way, hustling something, almost always for a group of people, me, my sibling, our friends, whatever wackadoodle shit we were up to that particular week. I was like the PT Barnum. So now I go by the lesbian PT Barnum or the non-binary PT Barnum or whatever, who knows what I am now, but I've always like had a knack for putting on a show.
You're the queer T Barnum.
The queer T Barnum. Done.
Did you have a lot of scripts and things that you were working on at that time that wouldn't
Yes.
ever get made? That
A billion, like a literal billion, 10, 20, 30 things a year that I was like trying to make happen. Constantly writing things, rewriting. I mean, this is a lot that I'm looking back on the sort of like just trauma of just running on that hamster wheel. And I think my perspective was being a cis female and that I had a lot to prove to cis men, and so that was keeping me running like a hamster. So I'm still trying to slow down and just like ease into the feeling that I've done enough.
Now that you've got this certain level of success, do you look back on some of those projects and you're like, now's the time, I get to make this?
They're all great. Every last one of them, they were all great. I mean, it's just so hard to try to get your work out in a world that really isn't interested in queer or feminist or Jewish or trans stories. But somehow I was just like always, out there waving the flag anyway. Now I think I'm aware of what I was up against. At the time, I don't think I was.
Yeah, it's probably better to go blindly into it, not knowing we're up against it. Yeah. Until I read your book, I didn't even realize that you were still going on this gender journey that your show was sending me on at the same time that you were making the show. And you later wrote that you were trying to create a show that would make a safer world for your parent and thus people like you and me. Do you find that your writing process has changed now that you're writing TV that has this sort of responsibility to teach people something that they might not know?
No, I think I've always felt very much like the stuff I want to do is stuff that's going to change the world or that has never been done before. Even when I identified as cis and female, that was my sort of feminist rallying cry. If I would go into a meeting, I would be saying, I want to do something that's never been done before. I want to do something that's going to change the world. And I think, I was presenting it in like an adorable way and trying to be like everybody's favorite, new flavor. At this point, I'm feeling a lot more, just rage about the system and the misogyny and the trans misogyny and the white supremacy. And, I just see it everywhere. And it's hard to kind of try to blind yourself to it to be able to work in this business. You have to be able to blind yourself to it to be able to make a living. Or not blind yourself to it, but like know what you're getting from it, but not allow it to turn you into somebody that you're not.
Do you find that like producers or gatekeeper people are like turned off by your earnestness to make change in your work?
I feel like at this point in my career, now that my deal with Amazon is over and it's time for me to like move into the world as a powerful trans creator, I do think I have to forge new relationships, and they're almost, yes, of course, they're almost always cis men.
Can you tell me about like your hiring process, how you bring in mentors, different points of view from things to round out your stories?
Yeah, just we're always keeping an eye out in all ways for all different kinds of people. There was actually a program through an offshoot of Time's Up with some other people. We created something called 50/50 by 2020, and that became a kind of a content lab or an artist lab called the Disruptors Fellowship. So that's like the main way that people come into my consciousness in terms of new voices is was the application process for the Disruptor Fellowship in terms of people just, I don't know. And then people that I do know, always just hoping to bring in people who I've met who I just think, oh, this person is a genius. I hope to spend more time with them and hear more from them. So I'm just going to hire them so I can learn more about them. Like people who just kind of pop up on your radar and you just think, you're amazing, I want to support you. And then, giving those people the entry-level jobs too.
Yeah. I imagine as the queer T Barnum, you're probably a magnet,
I'm a magnet and a magnate.
A magnate.
It's a lot. And that's also part of my like process is like trying to figure out, am I an artist? And am I an activist? Am I a politician? Am I a nonprofit runner? And how I can really take that urgent message of, catalyzing the privilege that I do have into opportunities for people who, haven't gotten that moment yet.
You're spinning a lot of plates over there. It's a lot of titles.
So many plates. The whole floor is covered with broken plates.
Yeah. So it can be hard to like have that responsibility of being an activist and also being an artist, and you're kind of on like the highest level dealing with Time's Up and creating TV shows, all these things at the same time. Do you burn out? Do you have times where you're like, I need a week off?
I kind of do. Like I try to do the Jewish thing. I try to do the Shabbat thing, like really stop on Fridays at the end of the day and really not pick up work till Monday morning or Saturday night after Shabbat or Sunday morning. Like I try to use that 24 hours as a place where I can regain sanity no matter what, even if supposedly the most important thing in the world is going on.
That's very responsible of you to even try to tune out.
I think it's necessary for me to know it's coming, every Friday, like 24 hours, I'm not working.
Yeah. No emails, finally.
Nothing. Not allowed. God would be mad. Goddess would be mad if my phone was on.
Yeah. They want the phone off.
Yeah.
When you finally get all your people in together on a set, when you got your crew and your cast and everything, you've talked a lot about respecting the process over the product when you're making good art. How do you talk about how you set the atmosphere on the set so it's comfortable and creative for everyone? Yeah,
well, some of these things came from the Annoyance Theater in Chicago from Mick Napier, who really taught me a lot about improv and process. And he was the one who said process over product. So when it was in a theater context, we would always just be like, yeah, on opening night, you only celebrate that it happened. You don't even have conversations about like what critic was here, what important person was here. Like those were these kind of culty no-nos that, that everything had to exist for itself, and whatever it was going to become transformed into, like even notes we didn't do on opening night. Like the first night had to be a celebration of the fact that it happened. Because as queer people, because as trans people, it's so hard to even just like get up in the morning and make our work in this world and feel safe enough to express ourselves that like, first you must celebrate that it happened. So I try to do that on the set and just be like, what do we say? All these things, on most sets, they say we're running out of money, we're running out of time, we're running out of light. On this set, we say we have plenty of money, we have plenty of time, and we are the light. And it's like, you just reset to believe that we deserve the same kind of privilege around time that any really successful cis man might demand. And so everybody on the set, can have that kind of privilege of like, We have all the time in the world, all the light in the world, and none of that, none of that poverty mentality. And that's just a state of mind. And it actually, makes the work go faster, makes there be so much more respect, and makes the product so much more special.
Can you tell us about Box, about the Box?
Yeah, so Box is like the same thing. So we get to work, and I do the same process with any group. So whether it could be a business meeting, it could be construction. And this is really just, I think stuff that we're all learning from your generation, circle-based pedagogy, Judy Chicago, like circle-based, like we all sit in a circle before we start and we name like what matters. So Box is a way of claiming and naming everybody's emotional states as mattering more than whether we get something, important done that whatever HBO is going to buy one day, or whatever it is we think is more important than kindness, that we think is more important than gratitude. We just like center gratitude by letting people get up on this Apple box, which is like sitting right over here in my office, and just say how they're doing, like emotional check-in. And we do that in meetings too, like go around, what's your name? What's your pronouns? And how are you feeling right now? And just grounding how everybody's feeling before we begin the work, where we start going, okay, time is money, money is time, that saying everybody's feelings are more important. And that makes it so people don't really want to throw each other under the bus because they heard that morning what people are going through. It kind of creates a purpose and a philosophy around doing the work that actually we are grateful that we get the opportunity to spend our day making art and, contributing to culture instead of the harder jobs. Really, we're playing today, I'll say, like, we're dressing up and we're playing the same thing as the dolls. Yeah. Like, this is so much privilege that we are all together playing and putting on costumes, and let's enjoy this privilege by being in our risk space creatively and centering love.
You make making television sound so much more human than any other TV. I worked on a sitcom where it was the exact opposite, and it was time is money, and everyone was hating each other, and no one wanted to be there, but we were there 18 hours or whatever. You make it so much more. It sounds like Chicago. Right.
Yes, it should be. And also, I think when you get to a place of privilege that you are a leader, you can start to insist on those things. Somebody told me that Taika Waititi between takes, between setups, has like giant bean bags for everybody to lay around on the set, and pumps in like chill reggae music.
And look at this product.
Yes. And so as you start to like rise, you get to kind of demand that. But I also think, of course, like if you're working in sitcoms, you can't do that. But if you're doing projects at Columbia, you can do that with your friends, where you just remind each other before you start, like, nobody's going to go off. Nobody's going to get mad. Just because somebody has the word director doesn't mean they have the right to like go off. What's most important is love and gratitude that we get to spend our day playing. And that is more important than anything.
Do you ever have actors who are resistant to your techniques? Does Kevin Bacon want to talk about beat changes?
Yeah, he was actually a little bit resistant, but he kind of went with it. I think, I just went in with Kevin Bacon the same way I would with anybody. Like, this is how we come together with a map of what we're doing here. And he got into it. He complained, but he got into it. We had like a giant like room in Marfa where we acted out the entire season of I Love Dick and Dance. And
wow.
Yeah. Like move through the beat changes, the actors and the writers, so we can all know where they are. Because that's my whole thing. And like, instead of whatever it is that everybody's trying to write down, script supervisor, producer, budget, schedule, I'm trying to get everybody to connect on where the beat changes are so we can all see them together. And that's what we're taking note of is whether or not we're really capturing the beat changes as a group.
It's a fabulous way to like keep everyone connected and in the same mood and on the same page and moving together.
And even if you don't agree on where the beat change is the beat change right before they say like, yes, I will join you on the adventure? Or is it in the middle of, I will join you on the adventure? Or is it right after? I will, where is the beat change? Even the discussion, of where the camera goes and how you're documenting the emotion of the character as they're making the decision to change what they're doing to get what they want. Like that's the conversation on the set. That's the conversation with the script supervisor, as opposed to, did they say the line right? Did you get the line right? You know,
when you're writing those scenes, are you thinking about playable actions and beat changes and things like that in the moment of writing? And that I assume changes constantly.
Yes. I mean, that is what that is. I'm so honored that you understand like the language of how I work and that we're able to like jump right in. But to me, that's the way you kind of like get a rewrite for me. So I'm living with my script. I'm showing it to people. I'm learning about my characters. And then I realize like, oh, this whole episode is wrong because actually Shelley should be doing this to get what she wants instead of this to get what she wants. Or this scene needs to be changed because Shelley should be, you know, agitating to get what she wants instead of like, you know, whatever, leading or whatever she does, you know, fascisting or demanding, you know, she could be either like demanding or she could be like doing a kind of, you know, I don't know, just like, what do we call it? Like passive aggressive. You know, let's say she's trying to get her way by demanding, or she's trying to get her, and I realize that's not working in the script. I will come up with a new playable action, and then I will sit down to do the rewrite, having already felt the new playable action somewhere else, like not in front of my computer. So I'm always kind of taking direction from a new decision about a playable action, whether it's in a scene, in an episode, in a whole script of a movie. I'm rewriting our transparent musical script right now. And just to go all the way through asking myself, what is Sarah doing to get what she wants? And just take a whole pass, really knowing like what a character is doing to get what they want. And when they change to another beat, like it's just like such a pure artistic way to work. And everybody can agree on it, you know, as opposed to these ways that people normally talk about work, which is qualitative. I liked it better. I don't know why. Because it makes me feel like more of a man. Is a lot of the notes, you know, we've been given over our lifetimes have been, you know, it's our own resonance with the character. We rewrite towards, you know, our own emotional resonance. And yes, like that question you asked about it happening in real life, like, yes, you cannot make the rewrite as a writer until you felt it as a person.
You sit with it.
And live it, you know, just like, unfortunately live it, you know, like live it. And then you can rewrite it, you know, right before you're feeling it or right while you're feeling it.
And then when you change Sarah's arc, it could change everybody else's
arc. Yeah, but that has to be the fun of it too. That's another thing about like, if there are any people who are writing students on here, like the belief that you're going to hand somebody something and they're going to say it's perfect, I want to pay for it and I want to produce it as is. That's patriarchy.
Exactly. You know? You're telling me what I want to hear and I'm going to make it.
Yes. And you're going to make it for me because you're going to give me the money and I'm going to make it. It's like, no, this is an open process and every feedback you get iterates to the next process. And what the script needs is what leads instead of somebody who has money and experience. You know, I think people are starting to work this way more, but we're all traumatized from the auteur who kind of comes in and shakes his pencil and goes like, this is what you must do. This is my vision.
The like Mr. MGM, you know, Mr. Mayor coming in and controlling.
Yeah. Or even the auteur that we have been taught to imitate, you know, whether it's Scorsese or Coppola or Spielberg, you know, I don't think those techniques will really work for, you know, queer and trans people, actually. As fun as it would be if they would work. But I don't think they would.
You've written a lot of like very casual queerness and casual sexuality and things like that I'm sure a lot of those gatekeeper folks would be turned off by if they weren't, if you were at another network besides Amazon. And like even in your book, you even give like this note at the top. It's like, sometimes I say dad and she in the same sentence. And a lot of us who have like already gone on our gender journey, we've reached our destination, all this language is very normal and simple to us. Do you find it like exhausting to over explain stuff to people, like even on the page or like in an interview?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's part of it. Or socially, you know, somebody says, what are you up to? And then I have to explain to them, you know, what it means for me to not be non-binary, or what it means for me to, at some point I was like, oh, I am one of the few second generation trans people out here. My sibling and I are both trans. Our parent is trans. You know, we're like, it's like being an immigrant or something, you know, like for me to say I can call my dad dad and I can call my dad she, like I'm only able to do that because I'm second generation trans. We're both trans, and everybody in the family, or most of the people in the family, are trans. So yeah, I'm in a whole different world than a lot of people. Yeah. You know, if I'm talking to a cis man and I'm trying to have them understand, you know, where I'm coming from, there are layers of me having to allow them to feel comfortable, you know, with my transness. I love these questions you're asking me, because they're exactly what I'm dealing with myself. You know, we're not in a trans world. We're still in a cis world.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, I feel like, you know, kind of just a few steps behind you in a way, because, you know, you were going through this process while you were putting it on the screen, while I was just watching it a few months later and learning it. And, you know, like when you wrote in your book about changing your hair and that huge effect that it had on you that you weren't expecting, and your breast reduction surgery, and how it was scary to give up that piece of power that you could still have when you were dealing with men. And I was just thinking recently, like, I'd love to cut my hair short again. It's been long for a few years, but do I want it short for the summer because I think that's cute? Or am I like trying to get a little piece of that power back? You know, it's like, are we going to constantly spend our lives with these spiraling internal debates of like, how do I present myself so that I'm happy and so that I'm still challenging the patriarchy?
Yes. Well, I think that journey and the awkwardness of it and the thrill of it is transness, you know, that I think that I'm always going to be asking that question because of the gift of being trans. You know, if we don't have the M or the F clearly on our papers, we're always going to be in this middle place being like, how do I want to be seen? Do I want to pass? Does it end up in my work? How does it end up in my work? I don't know. I think that's the gift of it. You know, I think that's the gift of it. You know, because I just like got my nails done. I'm like, I've always wanted like silver nails so I can be like, oh, I'm part robot. I woke up like this. And yeah, I have to deal with all these people who are like, well, I thought you were a man, you know, and so why you have your, not trans people, but cis people, like, well, what am I supposed to do with your painted nails? And I'm just like, I don't know what you're supposed to do with my painted nails. Like, I just wanted them. So I think we're always going to be in this place. To me, like, I think that was the mistake of 10 or 20 years ago. Not the mistake. We were, you know, anybody who was trans was forced to just like hurry and get off the bridge, like go to the other side, you know, really quick. So
get that
yeah, so that all the cis people can be comfortable. And I think I'm just like, I like being on the bridge. You know, the bridge is my identity.
Me too. Even today I was putting on this outfit and I was like, should I shave my little bit of chest hair? And I was like, no.
Absolutely not. Right.
Not today. We're blending.
Blending, exactly. Gonna keep my silver nails. And you know what? Yeah, it's almost like that point of agitation with cis people is always, or that not even with cis people, that point of being an agitator as an artist is always going to be there. So whether, you know, however you're rubbing up against it, you know, however you're like putting yourself through the cheese grater of heteronormativity so that you can make your art.
on those like things that you're writing right now, I know you've got like a lot in the pipeline right now. Do you find yourself like, oh, I'm going to push it just a little more this time, like further than transparent? I'm going to try something even edgier this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm never really trying to make it edgy. I'm just trying to like do a new pass at what a character is doing to get what they want. And I'm trying to like make my collaborators laugh or cry when they read the next draft. So I'm thinking more of a personal place. And I think if people are going to be laughing or crying, you do have to be on that edge.
Yeah. When you write characters like Chris Kraus, characters that you didn't create, but are, you know, people that you write for, are you finding like your own subconscious reflected back in those sorts of characters too? Like,
yes. Yeah, always. Like at some point I realized if I was working, and all of us, you know, and all of the writers on Transparent, like when you sit and you take a pass at a scene that's between, like, let's say Maura and Davina, you must be able to hold Maura's consciousness and hold Davina's consciousness. And it very much is like improvising. You know, it's just like if anybody's an actor, it's like jumping up on stage and somebody saying, okay, you're Maura now, you're Davina now. So whether it's Chris Kraus, whether it's Rabbi Raquel or whoever, you know, I think we wear the costume of their desire for the length of the rewrite.
You ever worry about, this is something you had written about in your book, about saying too much? Do you have boundaries on your writing that you won't cross? Not that you have to say them
Not really.
out loud,
No, I have an issue with, I'm a boundary breaker. I like to like set up camp at the boundary and just like expand the boundary, put out some pillows and have the conversation.
Everyone come out to the
boundaries. What was that?
Everyone come out to the border.
Yeah, it's like, let's sit in this boundary together and talk about it, you know, and have a scene here. Do it. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm still out here hustling.
Yeah.
Nothing. I think I often worry that I'm going to say too much, but then when you look at the amount of content that really is focused on trans and queer voices, we have such a small stage, you know, that if anything I did like was actually too much and really did dismantle something, like, okay, that would be amazing.
It would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I think you've got our full community on this stage supporting you behind your back.
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. I think I worry a lot about making sure that the trans community, you know, we care the most about how the trans community feels. It doesn't really matter to me how cis people feel, but when I feel like trans people are upset with something I've done, I feel like really bad. And also so happy when I feel like if trans people are like need my work or like my work, it makes me so happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking as a person who identified as trans when I started watching or identified as cis when I started watching Transparent and was something completely different by the end of it, you know, thank you. I think you're doing wonders for the trans community, as in perpetuating the trans agenda.
Yeah. Making everybody trans.
Shifting just a little bit, because I have a lot of questions on this topic. As women and minorities, we're constantly wasting our creative energy trying to get men to like us and give us like a little taste of their power, give us some kind of opportunity. For instance, I was recently working on a project with a cis white gay man who, I guess I had been right too many times and I was right again. And he like threw down his papers and said, "Can't you just give me this one?" And I said, "No, because we both know I'm right again." How do you handle people like this in your life, even if they're not necessarily men, but usually they are?
Yeah, I'm going through the same thing. You know, how much do you want to allow them to feel comfortable? And how much do you want to challenge, you know, their privilege? It's really hard. It's really hard. You know, I think what we're asking for out of cis people is to activate their privilege on behalf of the more marginalized people and to really use their privilege to promote and protect marginalized people. And I don't know if people are really on that. You know, I think a lot of cis men are like, Pokemon, like, here's my trans project, here's my Black project. You know, people are collect them all, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I end up feeling a little bit like a token. And yeah, you can't really call somebody out over and over again because they're not going to want to work with you. You know, you're always in that question of being pleasant and pleasing to work with, you know, until everybody we're dealing with really kind of is thinking like we're thinking, like use your access for revolutionary means, right? It seems so obvious to us, like the world is at war. Patriarchal privilege has run amok. Hand it over. Give us the wheel, quick, you know? But a lot of people don't see the world that way.
Yeah. Now that you're in the position that you're in now, running Topple, do you find that you deal with people like that less and less?
I don't know. I think it's still going to ultimately, I'm still going to be going, obviously, we're going to be going to cis people for money and to, you know, because there's not even, when you're saying like people like that, right? Like we're not even allowed to say the words because it's too much to conceive. It's like people, I heard the phrase today, cutie pock. Have you heard of cutie pock?
No.
We're trans people of color. Cutie pock.
Oh, love that.
Great phrase, cutie pock. Does it mean queer, trans, and people of color, or only queer, trans, people of color? If it means queer and trans and people of color, then we would be able to say it's us, cutie pock.
Yeah.
And anybody who's not cutie pock, I only want to deal with like not cutie pock for money, or not cis white men for money. But there's no even way of saying the thing that is not white, cis, straight, heterosexual, able-bodied men, because even saying it is too threatening. Or saying not cutie pock. Like, we don't even have the word to name anybody who didn't grow up with white privilege and patriarchal privilege, in patriarchal and white supremacist society. But like, if you were assigned male at birth and you're cis and you're white, you have the wind at your sails of patriarchy and of white supremacy. Even that's not being said.
Yeah. And they don't want to hear it.
No. And so if you're trying to say to that white gay man, like, the reason I need you to give me this one is because you've had them all for so long, like, that's a huge awakening that would potentially like disable him from getting up in the morning.
Yeah. Especially when, from his point of view, and with a lot of the folks that, with my projects, I have lately dealing with a lot of older white cis gay men. And if you say, like, you've had everything in the world handed to you, they say, I lived through the AIDS crisis, or I lived through this trauma. And of course you have lived through your trauma, but you've also had privilege.
Yes. And then what? Like, when they say, well, I don't think you just got here, you trans people just got here, or you non-binary people just got here. Like, I'm in the exact same position. I'll socialize and like, I do this imitation of like, let's just not say one gay man, but all gay men who are like, Joey, you look amazing. I'm going to take you out for a glass of wine and you're going to tell me what all this is about, this non-binary stuff. Like, they start telling me that they're going to take me out for a glass of wine and I'm going to tell them what all this non-binary stuff is about. And they think they're being so kind,
Yeah. And you say, read my book.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't like wine. Right. I don't like wine. You're already demanding that you do something that I don't like, which is make me drink wine. Like, slow down. I like, I like palomas. I love tequila. Like, I don't like wine. Like, no.
Ask me what I like to do with you.
Yes. And the first answer would be, I don't have time to teach you about my transness.
Yeah. I'm a very person.
Yes. No, just because you're demanding that we have wine, that you're going to give me wine and I'm going to teach you about my transness. Like, stop.
Yeah. No, it's not going to happen. There's Google for that. I'm over
it. And they get mad. I go, like, Google it. And they're like, but I don't want to Google. I want to learn from you. I'm like,
watch my show. I think you've given them enough opportunities.
I don't know. You would think, right? But yeah, it is hard to break people of that habit. Yeah. I think a lot of cis men believe that their delight is exciting to us.
Yeah. They're here to entertain us with their wonderful personalities.
Yeah. And that if they think we're amazing, that we should be so grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. Grateful. Exactly.
Yeah, that they're showering their adoration on us, and that should be enough for us to say, fine, I'll drink wine. Fine, I'll tell you all about my transness because you're so excited about, your trans Pokemon friend. Hopefully this isn't going to go out past us, right? Because I'm saying all this inside voice stuff.
It'll be whispered quietly through our trans community.
Okay, thank you.
Listening, don't tell any people what
inside
we're doing.
Voice.
This is a closed meeting. Do you think now that there are, more than 3 TV networks, that revolutionary television making is here to stay?
Are there more than 3? I still don't think there's more than 3. I think it's not 2, 5, and 7. It's Apple, Netflix and Amazon, we're still in the same position.
You're right. I was thinking ABC, NBC, CBS, but you're right. With people nowadays, it is just like 3 big streamers.
Yeah. And everything kind of like coming together, of ultimately who's going to stand behind your product and share it with the world, and who believes in you.
That's scary.
Yeah. I do think there's more interest in trans people, but I'm also seeing like a very, at the highest levels of a frank openness about needing to swing to the right in terms of entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really scary. People are like, it's just not the time for queer and trans stuff, politically.
We're making it the time for it to be.
Yes, it must be the time. I mean, this world is like falling apart. We must make the time.
When we thinking about like where we were as a queer community pre-Trump and now post-Trump, it's like things are scary, but it feels like because of all the rage he created, people got very educated very quickly about who we are, and God, I hope they're using the right TV shows to learn about us.
It's so scary what's happening in Texas right now, in Florida, and
it really is.
It's so scary.
That's frightening.
It's unbelievable. You know, that any person who's like holding public office could be discussing trans medicine as child abuse. Like, just when I'm trying to deal with whatever, Ukraine, you know, we're trying to figure out how to move forward and try to save the world before it's too late. And people are saying this sort of thing. And you can't even say like, well, the question itself, you know, just even the setting this question out in a public forum is misogyny, is transphobia. Like, and they're like, let both sides. And, you know, you don't even know where to go.
Yeah, there's no time. The world's on fire.
The world's on fire. Thank God we have time for this conversation.
Yeah, can you believe it? I've got to go put out a fire as soon as
we hang up.
Yeah, it's getting pretty exhausting, and it makes me feel like, you know, as like an artist or TV writer or whatever I am, I like, what can I do? Like, I can't do anything.
Hurry.
Tiny little skills here.
No, your skills are amazing. I mean, you're amazing. This is what I tell people when I'm trying to like motivate people is, you know, I try to imagine that I was born in a time where I could actually have had NB or X on my birth certificate. I was born as a non-binary child to parents who went like, look, they're an X, you know,
it's an X.
It's an X. Oh my God, you have an NB. And that I would have been raised that way, right? And so that I would have the privilege of being like seen as a non-binary person from the moment I was born until now. And that I would have grown up watching X-created television shows like Love Boat by non-binary people. You know, everything I ever watched was non-binary people instead of, you know, Jewish cis men, which was great, you know, being Jewish and thinking I was cis. I had a lot of television that made me go, oh, you know, Rhoda and Mary Tyler Moore and, you know, Norman Lear and Mel Brooks and like all these yummy ideas that felt like mine, you know, but they weren't because I wasn't white, Jewish, and cis. I thought I was, but I wasn't. So I try to imagine what would it have been like to have the privilege of having watched a non-binary Mel Brooks and a non-binary Carl Reiner and a non-binary, all of these people that I worshiped.
Yeah.
And then we as trans people have to take that one imagination of like how good we would have felt about ourselves if we were immersed in culture created by non-binary heroes, and then extrapolate that amongst our agents, our managers, the distributors, the people we go into meetings with, because that's what we're competing against. When we get up the nerve to sit across from a cis man and say, this is my dream, we're competing against cis men who have had that level of pride in their identity reified over and over and over again every single day as they encounter the Jerry Seinfelds and the George Carlins or whoever it is who might have been my heroes, who I wanted to be. We're competing against those guys. So you have to make up so much privilege about your right to exist just to write a script. We have to imagine so much privilege just to say, I want to get on stage as a stand-up, or here I am, I want to direct. We're competing against so much. And not only have they been able to be raised amongst their heroes, they live in a world where God is a cis man and where Jesus is a cis man, or Moses. I mean, we are so behind as trans people. So behind that we have to just imagine inordinate amounts of privilege. And so that's what I just tell people to do. Just try to imagine, try to keep imagining that everything you ever saw had your politics in it and your face in it and your transness in it. And that you have that much pride and that much sense of the right to tell your story. And then take Shabbat off
Yeah, I actually wrote down a quote I was going back over the lines that I highlighted in your book, taking notes for this, and one of the quote that I wrote down, that's what I have it had on the sticky note on my dry erase board. You wrote, "Who would we be if we weren't afraid of what our state of wanting might incite?" A great reminder to live and write and perform in this world as though no one's going to take shit out on you for what you live and write and create.
It's such a big thing, even hearing you say it, because I still go through it all the time. Just like, how dare I make anything, and how dare I believe that I have the right to have it seen? Like, still, of course, we all just, it's the hazard of the job of being an artist, is this self-hatred. And then it's quadrupled when we're trans. We're just pushing out of this self-hatred all the time.
Yeah. We'll get better at it.
Yes. Once we realize it's our birthright, and that nobody can take it from us. Like, it makes sense when you and I are here talking about it, and then we go out into the world and we realize, somebody will still call me by my old name, or even think they're giving me a compliment. Like, oh, I'll always see the you that I've always known.
You didn't know me.
You didn't know me, right?
I didn't know me.
Don't talk about the old me. Talk about the new. Yeah.
Before we get to our Q&A, one last thing I would love for you to talk about, because I know there's some people watching that would love to hear you talk about this. Can you tell us what it means to create a TV show that is HQ 70?
HQ 70. Yeah, again, like, forget just the trans stuff, but the Jewish stuff, it's like, it's just so, it's all about like embodying the other. It's all about taking this way of feeling shame and saying, I'm not going to feel shame. I'm going to show my desire, and I'm going to name it and claim it. I mean, gosh, like, especially right now in this world, where we're looking at Trump and we're looking at Putin, and we're looking at all these people who use this kind of repression, these repressed bodies, as the site where they're able to sow hatred. And as somebody who says, well, no, I'm not, I'm Jewish, or no, I'm not, I'm trans. We're so like embodying these like dangerous positions, and then insisting on making art and having it seen. Like, I don't know if there are people out there who know what that means. HQ 70 is where, back in the old Dewey Decimal System, you would be able to find the trans and queer Jews. So you would find Magnus Hirschfeld, or Sarah Schulman, or Leslie Feinberg, or I don't know, the 10 of us, the 20 of us. Yeah, I think I'm out. But, there's quite a few people, but not enough to really start a movement. The Jewish people are having to really contend with everything that goes with being Jewish and Zionism, and trans people are having to contend with everything that goes with, being cis. So this little pocket of all of us inside of the Dewey Decimal System drawer under HQ 70, I think it's just like, yeah, if I ever got a tattoo, that would probably be it.
That's fabulous. It's like beautiful to watch stories like the horrific thing that happened to Magnus Hirschfeld's research when it was burned by the Nazis, and to see it trickle down through our culture, and to be a storyline on Transparent, and so people can discover that queer history and discover Hirschfeld and Henry Gerber and the gay rights and trans rights movements in general, and like really where they began. So it's so important that we write these stories, no matter how dangerous it is to do it.
So, yeah, so important. I mean, when we're looking at, what is happening in Texas, and they're saying that, like, that anything other than two genders is, you're crazy, or you're imagining it, you're making up, that there are only two genders. Like, reminding people that the Nazi book burning, it's like they were burning the books that said there were more than two genders, not just any books. They weren't, burning the Berenstein Bears. They were burning the books that said there's more than two genders, and that's something that we weren't taught, and so we are at this moment in history where I think people who not only are trans, but also our collaborators and our families, really need to stand up for what's happening right now, that trans people are again being used, just like Trump, just like Putin, just like Hitler, to say that this deviancy makes these people non-human. deviancy, this is portraying our selfhood as deviant and insisting that we're slightly less than human. And that's the same thing Dave Chappelle is doing.
Exactly. Perpetuating the same problems that Nazis perpetuated. Great.
I mean, can somebody tell him? Obviously, he doesn't care to hear what I'm saying, but like somebody tell him, like, you're taking the side of the Nazis.
Yeah.
Did you tell him?
Kind.
Yeah.
Well, we have a few questions here in the chat for you. I haven't read them. I'm just going to read them cold here. As the TV industry becomes more virtual and more competitive, does it become imperative for a writer to focus on the voices that make them stand out, given how there doesn't seem to be a shortage of writers? If so, how would you advise that writer to stand out towards pilot competitions or networking opportunities?
Well, I think enter everything, like enter every single thing, enter everything, every single pilot competition. Anytime you can be like, I am part of Sundance's class of whatevers, or AFI's class of, or I was chosen for this, like just enter all those things however you can. Get fee waivers, ask people who love you to pay your application fees. Never let application fees stand in the way of you and entering something. When you do enter things, like actively make yourself known to the people, actively make your transness known and your queerness known, and make sure that you have trans and queer protagonists. I meet a lot of people who will write stuff, will be trans people, they'll write cis protagonists, and they won't really make the effort to let people know that they're queer or trans when they're entering these worlds, because I think they just want to, I don't know why, but I think it's really important to just claim, to have trans and queer characters and have it be your voice, make it funny on your terms, make it interesting on your terms, don't try to be anybody else, and just like proudly, continue to use your name, use your gender, brand yourself, and get connected with these named opportunities,
Okay.
The programs, the grants, all the ways.
Yeah. Say yes to everything you can.
Yes, get in there. Nobody's coming over to ask you to open up your Word documents so they can look for the good thing. You have to show it to them. There will be no knock at the door. Yeah. Show me everything on your. Yeah. They're not coming over to ask you what's on your hard drive.
I wish they would. I've got a lot.
Right? No one's coming though.
No. Another question from the audience. We covered this a little bit, but how did your vision change or evolve along the journey of making transparent? And just to add on that, I'm sure your own gender, I'm sure learning things about yourself probably influenced the story of your family.
Yeah, it's all huge. I mean, I think when I was writing the transparent pilot, I was just trying to like write my way to a conception of my family. Like, what would it mean to be a family, kids of a transparent? So I was sort of projecting all of us and writing a new version of us that I could live inside of while I dealt with, what it really meant. The real truth of where we all are now. Again, like my sibling and I both identify as trans. My dad identifies as trans. It's a whole thing, to look back on this childhood and be like, okay, 3 out of 4 people in the home were in the wrong gender. So yeah, what was that?
I was just saying, that's probably happening in a lot of families.
I'm sure it is. Yeah. 3 out of 4 dentists agree. Most of us are trans. But ultimately, most of us are trans. But no, at the time, what was it? It was just me trying to kind of do my usual coping mechanism, which was to write an imaginary world that I could live in and play dolls with these characters. And then, yeah, writing is just kind of, I think, creating propaganda for the self, creating propaganda for your own point of view. And I really got to do that, not only through Ari, but through everybody, Sarah, Maura, Shelley, Josh, and then bringing on other writers who could do the same thing, laminate their own journeys onto the characters and write these scenes, write this dialogue you wish you would have said, do this thing, win this fight the way you would, wish you would have won it. Like that's what writing is too.
I love that you call it propaganda.
Yeah, propaganda for the self. Protagonism is propaganda for privilege, propaganda for the self.
Since we're here, I'm very curious. How close is Shelley to the real Elaine Soloway?
Okay, well, Elaine Soloway is probably watching. I know
Shout out to Elaine. Love you, Elaine.
If you're here, we see you. Because I know my mom was aware. Let me just see if she's on these lists. Attendees.
Quinn says she is here. Hi, Elaine.
Yeah, here, I see her. Elaine, talking permitted.
Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, Mom.
How are you?
Will you turn on your camera so I can see you, or were you not prepared?
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to turn on my camera. I don't know. Yeah, let me see if I can turn on a camera. Microphone, speaker.
The real life Shelley Pfefferman. You can answer that question. How close are you?
Not close at all. Can you hear me on that?
We can hear you. We can see a great photograph.
Yeah. Not close at all. I mean, she is marvelous in her role. And so actually I was trying to write something about that. And at first I said that, she was a little pathetic. And I said, well, maybe she is like me, or, crossing boundaries and all. But we're, let me see if they're real me.
I see Shelley as more of like maybe she's a little bit of a naif, like a little bit naive.
Is that what you say? When I see you start the video, I put makeup on, so for God's sake.
Okay, great. There she is.
I put makeup on, so I have to see.
Good, exactly.
First of all, honey, you are just such a marvelous interview subject, isn't she? I mean, don't they? Well, that's one of the things that I trip over, and I excuse myself because for over 50 years, and according to the birth certificates, they were one name. So I trip over it, and I write about that. I'm working on it, and I wish more people my age would work on it. But no, I think Shelley, about crossing boundaries and hitting up boundaries, is very similar to me. And my love for my children is her love that Shelley is. And I think that Judith Light is just an amazing actress, person. It's amazing. But Devlyn, isn't Joey a marvelous subject matter? I mean,
I talk to them all day, every day.
Come on,
everybody.
Have you ever had someone so much fun and intelligent? I'm sorry, sweetheart. What are mothers for?
Right. But people are watching. I'm not sure if you're aware, Mom, but we have a whole audience. So.
No, I know. I brought a lot of.
Most of them you brought, so you can say.
About 100 of my friends are here. So.
Honestly, Elaine, I could talk to you all day too.
The whole Soloway family. We got to get Faith on here.
Yeah, do we look alike? God. Right.
3 out of 4, Mom. 3 out of 4 dentists agreed that 3 out of 4 of us were trans in our family.
Yeah, that's what I understand. I wish I would have known it then. And unfortunately, I'm still a cis female, which is pretty boring. But
you are, yeah. You are very boring. Come on over to the other side. The water's fine.
Who knows? In my later years, one never knows. What never knows. Right?
One never knows.
I was thinking of you, Elaine, when in that line that Judith Light says, I think it's in the last season. Yeah, because Allie's figuring out that they're non-binary, and Judith Light says, maybe I'm trans. Oh, Elaine was feel so left out.
She says that in the pool. She says that in Jerusalem, in the Dead Sea. I'm probably trans, right?
It's rubbing off.
Yes.
Well, could be.
Very Soloway.
Right. But this has been such a great hour for anybody who's tuned in. So much information.
Thanks for inviting people. I'm looking at all of your friends here. And
can you see how many people are attending?
There's a lot of Columbia people too, Mom. I think that's probably more.
Yeah, no, but there should be a lot. Well, because I don't have the list of people who are here, but I'm sure a lot of my friends are here.
Yes, a lot of your friends are here.
Right. I have a lot of Columbia friends.
What else?
Okay, goodbye.
Everybody.
Yeah.
It's Friday. It's almost Shabbos.
Right. We'll light candles tonight.
Yeah.
Right. And
pray for peace.
Right. Exactly.
You have a hard out shortly, but if there's anything else you'd like to say, or if there are any other questions.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for how much you are aware of like what I do. And I have, I went to Columbia. I have like very warm feelings about Columbia College. I learned about screenwriting there. And so, after I got out of Madison. I did a few years of classes there and have like really warm memories. So all you trans young artist people who are watching, just like do your thing and surround yourself with all of the imagined privilege of the cis white guys who believed it was their right to create culture. Like it's our moment to create culture, and we absolutely have to, because we can save the world if we do it.
I love that. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this conversation, Joey.
Thank you. So much love.
Being that X in the box making TV for us, because that person that you wanted to have when you were a kid, you're doing that for so many now. I'm very grateful for it.
That means so much to me. Thank you so much.
Just going to close this out very quickly and say thank you to Joey and thank you to Devlyn for being such a great interviewer and interviewee, and being here for our students. I know it means so much for them to have this opportunity to participate in the conversation. Thank you to Topple Productions and to Ren specifically for dealing with all of my emails back and forth. You have such a lovely team and they were so great to work with. And yeah, just to all of our students for being here today. Anything you want to add, Matthew?
Another round of gratitude. This was so great, and thank you.
Great. Thanks, Elaine Soloway, right?
Yeah, thanks, Elaine.
Our surprise guest.
Surprise guest.
I'm happy that we got you in here. It was like we were joking that maybe it would happen, and I'm
Perfect.
Well, you don't have to ask me twice to jump in and show off and to see my kid. That's
love you, Mama.
I love you, sweetheart. So proud of you. So
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye, Columbia. Bye, Chicago.